For RCR Wireless News, I'm Sean Kinney, and welcome to Mobile Midday. Of course, we'd like to thank our sponsor, telecomcareers.com, the industry's largest resume database and jobs board. Also like to thank our editor-in-chief, Dan Meyer, who, as always, is joining us from his office in Denver, Colorado. And we're also joined today by a special guest, Prag Shah, SVP of Customer Experience and Operations at Zubie. Prag, thanks for joining us, and a big announcement from Zubie this morning. Can you tell us a little bit about the product that you're launching?
Yes, delighted to be here. We announced this morning that we're offering to customers what we call perks. It's a very targeted, selective savings program within our service. And for industry and for us, it's a platform to provide very relevant, timely, automotive-related savings as part of our core service, and it's called Zubie Perks.
Tell us a little bit about the Zubie hardware and what it does in terms of connecting your vehicle.
Sure. It's actually not just the hardware. We're actually a connected car service, so it's not just a fad or a related to the hardware. The service itself, through the device, which is cellular connected, so it's always on with the nationwide cellular connectivity to the vehicle, and then cloud-based data and insights that we provide back to consumers and small businesses in the app, provides real-time diagnostics of the health and well-being of their vehicles, as well as the health and well-being of their drivers.
Okay, and then you can take that diagnostic information, like the need to get an oil change, and Zubie will find deals in your area for an oil change, for instance, right?
That's one use case. That's correct. A lot of what we're providing as a service is through perks are very targeted offers that are near and dear to drivers and car owners. The case that you described, another one would be we can monitor remotely because of the nationwide connection what's going on, say, with your battery. So even if you're not with your vehicle and your battery is running low, we'll send you in-app an alert that says, hey, notice that your battery might be dying. And with that, through a partner like Sears, we can provide a very targeted battery-related offer as well. So it's not just mass advertising, it's very targeted and relevant and context-specific to our subscribers.
Well, that sounds like a really useful service, and we cover a lot of news here at RCR Wireless that touches on e-commerce, m-commerce, and connected vehicles. Prag, could you maybe take a look ahead at 2015 and tell us some of the trends in those spaces that you're watching?
Sure. Not only connected car and what we're doing with perks, which is again very relevant and contextual. But also, we'll see over time the integration of what's traversing between the car and the home, and we're taking everything from the user perspective, right? Users and small business owners are very busy in their day-to-day goings, and what we're providing through the connected car service around drivers and vehicles, we'll see that starting to morph and integrate. We'll be making some product announcements later related to connectedness with the home and what a user is really trying to do with a connected lifestyle. We're also seeing that most of the growth in the market for connected car is coming from aftermarket solutions like Zubie, where a customer can purchase a device and a service that's not embedded with the actual vehicle or the OEM manufacturers, and be able to use those across different cars, right? A typical consumer household very rarely has the same make or make models in their garage. And so the advent of aftermarket services like Zubie is where we're seeing continued growth as we move forward as it relates to connected car.
Very good, Prag. Well, I really appreciate you taking a moment to come on Mobile Midday and explain Zubie for us. And thank you again for your time. That's Prag Shah, the SVP there at Zubie in Charleston, South Carolina. And then
thank you.
Some other big news this morning from carrier Sprint. The company just announced that they've met their 2014 year goals, and they laid out some plans for 2015 regarding LTE coverage. Now, this is something Dan Meyer, our editor-in-chief, has been covering for us. Dan, can you just kind of give us the highlights?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Sean. So yeah, today, or actually I think it was yesterday, late afternoon, Sprint had announced, just kind of give an update basically on their network progress. Not much of a surprise that they basically met their goals for the year, which were to get 100 million potential customers or POPs covered by their 2.5 gigahertz spectrum-powered LTE network by the end of 2014. They claim they've met that now, and also that they have expanded their 800 megahertz CDMA voice coverage across the whole network, which is another point they're trying to get to by the end of the year. So they basically just gave an update on that, kind of where they were, and also looking ahead a little bit on plans to expand their 800 megahertz spectrum for LTE support as well going into next year. The plan is to have that nationwide, or at least as far as their spectrum is available to them by the end of next year, and to continue expanding their 2.5 support for LTE as well. They're really kind of focusing next year, it seems like, with the 2.5 spectrum on kind of bolstering some of the bigger markets where there's capacity constraints. They've talked in the past about providing a Tokyo-like experience, which kind of references the parent company SoftBank, which is a big carrier in Japan, really providing really dense coverage in urban areas, so customers in those really densely packed areas can have good services. So Sprint's going to be focusing a lot next year on that as well. So again, just kind of a basic update from them. Again, no surprises really. They are providing a little bit of color on next year, but not a lot of color. One of their rivals, T-Mobile, earlier this week also provided an update on their network as well. They provided a little bit more information on what they were doing, but again, for Sprint, it's a nice announcement for them, just kind of letting people know that they are still moving ahead pretty well on their network expansion and kind of the rebuild on their network. So a good announcement from them.
All right, well, we'll look for some of those urban densification initiatives from Sprint in the coming year. Dan's got that story up on rcrwireless.com. And Dan, I'm working on a story. I hope to get it posted up there later today. But I had an opportunity to speak with some execs from ExteNet. ExteNet's a distributed antenna system firm that has a number of big professional sports arenas and other in-building systems. We were talking about their deployment specifically at the Barclays Center up in Brooklyn. That's the home of the Brooklyn Nets NBA team, and next year they're going to start hosting the New York Islanders NHL team. Anyway, a report from Wefi ranked the Wi-Fi and cellular data speeds in arenas all around the country and found that Barclays has the best service of any facility. And that's the fastest Wi-Fi service and fastest cellular speeds. Folks from ExteNet told me that their success there at Barclays is really based on providing those two complementary networks, but really based on a strong partnership with the venue owner. And the way they described that to me is when they were deploying the system, the venue owners basically gave them the run of the place so they could put the antennas that they needed anywhere in the building that would optimize the network. So I'll have something up on that today, and that'll be on rcrwireless.com, go into more detail of that particular deployment. But Dan, when that Wefi report came out, I know that you wrote a story that sort of went over those different rankings, and I mean, the big takeaway for me is that people have just come to expect good Wi-Fi and good in-building cellular service when they pay a couple $100 for a ticket. Is that your impression?
Yeah, that's kind of what's happening nowadays too. I mean, it's obviously, these arenas like this are really tough to cover. I mean, at least for cellular carriers, because again, mostly the cellular operators are kind of trying to beam signals from the outside in. And most of these buildings now are, very thick, metal or mortar, whatever they're using for these buildings. So they're really difficult to get a signal into them. So a company like ExteNet or other in-building solution providers are really stepping up, or really having to do a lot more when it comes to ensuring that customers have both, a cellular connection inside, but also the Wi-Fi connection. And again, it sounds like with ExteNet working at the Barclays Center, they did a pretty good job there. And perhaps they could help them a little bit with the weatherproofing at that building as well. I heard earlier this week they had a leak in the roof there from a rainstorm during a basketball game. So maybe they could help them out a little bit on that as well.
Do you ever go to any Denver Nuggets games, Dan?
We do on occasion, yeah. I go to a few more of the Avalanche games down there, but I've been down there a few times and over the years, and I have definitely noticed that the connection inside has gotten better over the years. I know they were working with a local provider on boosting signal inside, and it seems like they've done a pretty good job of making sure that customers can get a good signal while they're inside. Because obviously, when you're watching a game, you have to also be watching your phone, sending tweets and things like that too. So.
Well, I'll expect a few Snapchats from you the next time you're at a game.
Definitely.
All right, another hot topic we're watching is net neutrality. This has been in the news a lot with President Obama unveiling his plan for new legislation to keep the internet free and open. We all know that large carriers have a big stake in this debate, and with Google getting into the carrier arena, we wanted to know if it's changed its stance. Reporter Joey Jackson did some research. Let's see what he found out.
Well, Sean, I found out that first of all, Google doesn't like to talk much about it, and second of all, their stance isn't always consistent. When the whole net neutrality debate first came out in 2006, they came out with strong words saying phone and cable monopolies pose serious threats to the internet's freedom from traffic discrimination. But in 2010, they changed their tune a bit and even teamed up with rival Verizon on some legislation, perhaps paving the way for Google Fiber, that was in the works. And now they're back to where they started with a strong statement, saying service providers shouldn't have the ability to control and prioritize internet traffic. It's a stance that's changed a lot, but for now, those are pretty strong words.
So Google Fiber here in Austin is, it's been a very publicized deployment, but again, it's very limited. It doesn't even cover all of Austin at this point, just certain neighborhoods. So I think the big story here is really how net neutrality is affecting capital expenditure plans from some of the big carriers who might have previously pursued a nationwide fiber build out. Dan, is that sort of your sense of it too, that until this net neutrality issue is settled, we might see sort of a slump in the actual infrastructure build outs?
That's a tough one. Net neutrality is definitely one of the bigger topics behind the scenes and probably in front of the scenes right now for the telecom space. There's been some comments from some of the larger tech companies that this uncertainty right now, or even if the FCC were to decide to group internet services under Title II, which gives it more regulatory power, could cause a slump in spending. But on the other hand, some of the telecom companies, specific ones, have said that there's likely it won't be any impact at all on their spending. It's right now there's a lot of posturing going on. It's a very contentious issue, and so it's hard to get a real read on what people are thinking when it comes to eventual spending impact on this. I doubt that people would really cut back much on spending when it comes to building out these networks, just because the internet access and people's desire to use the internet is not going down. So to keep up with this need, spending's gonna have to continue. So it's a tough one to kind of tackle at this point. Again, it's a hot issue. It's gonna be something that's gonna be with us well into next year. It's a tough one to kind of tackle at this point, Sean. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out. I guess both sides have a good argument here. So.
Yeah, well, needless to say that whatever that debate comes out looking like, it's going to have a major impact on the future of the telecom sector. And Dan, another story you've been following for us is the FCC's ongoing spectrum auction. And I think they released a new holiday schedule governing the rules. Can you tell us more about that, please?
Sure, yeah, spectrum auction. It's got to stay excited about the spectrum auction. But yesterday the FCC announced a holiday schedule, which they're looking ahead a little bit to next week. So basically, following bidding on Tuesday afternoon, they'll take a 2-week break and start back up on January 5th. Now, leading into that, earlier this week, the bidding went to a stage 3 process, which is basically just required bidders to be a little more active if they want to stay in the auction. And that resulted in a spike in bidding over the past couple of days. But now looking today at the bidding this morning, the bidding has definitely dropped back down. Not a lot of bids coming in starting this morning. I guess maybe in tune with that, the FCC announced just a little bit ago that they're going to increase the bidding starting tomorrow from the 6 bidding rounds per day today to 8 bidding rounds starting tomorrow. So the FCC is trying to, I think, speed up the process a bit. They're kind of working against now this little deadline of the holiday break. So perhaps we're looking to get this either wrapped up potentially before the holiday break. Otherwise, this is off the drag into next year, which won't be a lot of activity probably. But so we're kind of hit this point here where I think the FCC is trying to look to either get this thing done in the next couple of days, or this thing will just become a 2015 issue and get it all done by then. So we're kind of hitting an inflection point here, I think.
All right. Well, Dan Meyer, our editor-in-chief, we appreciate you coming on, of course. And Dan will be following that FCC story for us on RCRWireless.com. That'll do it for Mobile Midday News. For more on these stories and many others, you can check out our website. And for the multimedia content, visit us on our YouTube channel. And of course, a big thank you to our sponsor, telecomcareers.com. See you back here tomorrow morning for Global Joe.